Okay, guys, I have a review. The book I'm going to review for you guys is called Long Division by Kiese Laymon. It was first published by Agate Books in May of 2013. It has 276 pages and it has around 109 ratings on Goodreads. Especially since now, after Rincey's video on trying to read more books on color, that I think this review is well timed, I guess, if I get this review up in time. She probably won't. But anyway, this is a debut novel by this author. The character's name is Sidney Coulson, and essentially, he's 14 years old. He's a black chubby kid, and at the beginning of the novel, he is kind of in like a school rivalry with another kid, and they're both supposed to do it's like a spelling bee, but it's with sentences. So they give the kids words to put in a sentence, and they're supposed to make the most dynamic sentence possible using the correct usage of the word. And they have to go on TV, and stuff happens. Slightly racist stuff happens, and the main character, City, he kind of has like an onstage meltdown, and he becomes like a YouTube sensation. And so, with all the stuff happening, his mother sends him to Malahatchie in Mississippi to spend time with his grandmother while this whole thing boils over. He gets in trouble at school at one point, and he sees this book, Long Division, like on the bookshelf of his principal, and he asks his principal if he can borrow the book. And so he's reading it. And this is where it gets a bit trippy. So in this book, Long Division, the main character is Sidney Coulson, but in 1985, and that Sidney Coulson is also black and a little chubby in Malahatchie, Mississippi, and he is in love with this girl named Shyla Crump. And Shyla Crump she's like the girl that he can always be himself with, and he's very honest with, and he is always asking her like, well, how can I make you love me? But they're really close, and she keeps speculating about the future, and specifically 2013. And then it gets really interesting where there's like this hole in the woods that they could time travel in. It's okay, so essentially, this book is like a mixture of Inception, The Never-Ending Story, and time travel, I guess. It is, I would definitely qualify it as a young adult novel, but it's definitely not your typical young adult novel. It is not centered on white characters. It definitely has a lot of different layers of issues that it's dealing with. It's dealing with issues of race, trying to connect to your past, post-traumatic stress, sexuality, and just, it's like a coming-of-age novel. Yeah, it's super trippy. It's super trippy because as the city outside of the book is reading Long Division, the city in the book also finds a book named Long Division, and he reads it, and from what you can gather from the book that the city in the book is reading, he's reading things about the city out of book, if that makes any sense. So there are things in this book I definitely appreciated, because it's like these are black kids definitely after the civil rights era, and at the same time both cities, both in 2013 and 1985, are kind of like are at odds with why their elders are kind of act a certain way around white people, or they tell them certain things. But then by time traveling even earlier, like in 1964, they finally kind of realize certain things. And it has a lot in it. It has a lot of fantastical elements in it. It has a lot of really serious, issues dealing with like race, sexuality, and, growing up. And love, of course. It was just a lot. Personally, I kind of wish that this book was longer because, like I said, it has a lot in it. If Laymon wanted to actually have all of these elements in the story, I felt that to actually give them justice, you would have needed to make a longer story to fully develop some of these ideas that were really, honestly, are really brilliant. But it was seeming a bit too short for me, and some of the ideas I kind of felt like it didn't fully describe or develop certain aspects or fully explain certain things, because there are certain things it's really like metafiction, and it's yeah, but it has some cool stuff in here. I think this is definitely a good book to even discuss in schools, because I can definitely see like in schools where the majority of the students are minorities, and if you're just in an English class reading books where all the characters are white, I can totally see people tuning out those lessons and those books, because I mean, if you're always reading things that are of characters that you can't really necessarily relate to, or you're always being told that it just so happens all the books that people think they're of value to read have characters that you can't relate to, that don't look like you, that don't have relatives that speak like you, that don't have a perspective or have an understanding of the issues that you deal with. It's very easy to just dismiss English or, reading if that is your exposure to books, and reading are characters and people and perspectives that you can't relate to. And I saw some Goodreads reviews in which, the person said they taught this in high school and the kids really responded to it, because, I mean, I think it's very valuable for people to not only read books in which they can identify with and they can relate to and they can see themselves as those people. I think it's also important for people to read books from many different perspectives, that there's a variety of literature with a variety of different characters, backgrounds, perspectives, and that, literature isn't only like a white person thing. I have family in Louisiana and Texas, and it definitely could hear some of my relatives in here, and especially some of the conversations that he has with his grandmother about, how he notices different things and how she acts differently around certain people, and really, he just notices those things, and he actually asks her, would you say that in front of that other lady, like that feeling of, someone older realizing that the younger generation doesn't understand the context that they're going to grow into, and kind of, at least to a certain extent, wanting to delay, that harsh truth that they'll eventually have to learn, especially as a minority. I felt that those moments were very, very profound. I give this book a 3 out of 5 stars, mostly because I wanted it to be longer, but I definitely do recommend it, and I will definitely see if I can read any more Laymon books. This is his first book that he wrote, but I think it took him a while to actually get published, so he has another book out, and I think it might have been published at the same time. And I think he kept getting denied by publishers because his books had too much race, or they thought they had too much race issues in it or something like that. When I heard about that on NPR, where it took him a really long time to actually find a publisher because of what he writes about, I definitely wanted to pick him up. And I actually wanted to read his other book first. I forgot what his other book was, but this book was the only book they actually had at my library. So I picked this up, and I'm glad I did. So yeah, after I read it, I was really surprised looking at the front. It was classified just under Mississippi fiction. I definitely would classify this as young adults, but not in the sense that of the plot is simple or the language is simple or anything like that. But it is a coming of age story, and the main characters are like 14 to 16, and it's about these kids essentially trying to connect to their past and trying to figure out where they fit in their future and where they fit in the world. Alright, that was my review. Talk to you guys later. Bye.